Do you like playing with wood? Do you like the feel? Okay, I'm going to stop with the double entendres. But jokes apart, I'm convinced that wooden guitars will be a thing of the past sooner than you think. And this is why. So, folks, welcome back to the Ministry of Guitar. If you like what we're doing here, opinions, PRSs, Gibsons, extended range guitars, please do subscribe. Otherwise, we'll move on to the topic on hand. Here's the thing, there are some things we take for granted, and somehow guitars or stringed instruments, usually being made from wood, is just taken for granted. And as the world evolves and as we deal with or incorporate some of the major macro changes that are happening, if you examine it carefully, you may realize that, hold on a second, it's rather inevitable that something very drastic is going to happen in this particular sphere. See, the thing is, wood is the harvesting of wood, using wood, transporting wood, the labor needed to turn wood, which is an organic material, into a guitar with consistency. All of this is part and parcel of the guitar building process and the guitar building cost today. But if you really think of it without being encumbered by tradition, why does it have to be that way? I'm not saying I want that to happen. I love guitars made from wood. Look behind me. But just think of it from a disruptor's perspective, or just think of it from a business person's perspective who is trying to ultimately find a way to improve consistency, reduce cost. You may remember my previous video, the golden era of affordable guitars is beginning but will be over before you know it. And what I mentioned there is that the low-cost labor countries, the idea of a low-cost labor country may become a thing of the past as some of the developing countries get more and more developed and they get more and more expensive relative to their developed counterparts. So take something like US and Western Europe is developed. Today, India and Indonesia and Vietnam is very much cheaper compared to that place, compared to Western Europe and US. But the gaps are reducing. So what does that mean? That means that labor gets more expensive. Ultimately, you're not able to hit a certain price point with labor, and you need to look to technology to solve that problem. There's a second factor as well, climate change, or rather the regulations that will come into place with climate change. I mean, 50 years ago, people used Brazilian rosewood everywhere. It was used on furniture. It was used like, people just didn't give a damn. And look at what's the state with Brazilian rosewood today. It's classified on the same level as elephants' trunks, tusks, ivory. So I don't think it is a leap of the imagination to suggest that organic materials such as wood, for use on mass industrial scale, that use may clash with certain environmental objectives and environmental laws. And thinking long term, there may be a point where it may just not be economically viable to use wood. So the combination of labor costs with wood being higher. Now, why is this? When you are working with an organic material, you need much more of a human hand, right? There's still a lot of, though you have CNC machines and everything, there's still a lot of human involvement, even in mass guitars. If you look at any of the videos of even the mass factory, say the PRS factory, SE factory in Indonesia, it's still a lot of humans doing a lot of work. Now, if you suddenly imagine that the guitar could be made from any material, some artificial material, in fact, companies are already doing that, right? If you think of RSTDs. Imagine that. Imagine a guitar could be made from any material, a material that can be produced at industrial scale without any problems in terms of consistency and relatively cheap once you get everything going. Imagine that. Imagine that this material can just simply be 3D printed into the correct shape. Now, I know that there are certain things like truss rod, etc., but truss rod ultimately is compensating for the movement of wood. If you have material that does not move, like it does not move like wood because it is inorganic, perhaps you can get away without a truss rod. I'm not a luthier, but I'm just making certain assumptions and certain speculations. Imagine that. So you can have material that is consistent, cheap to produce like plastic. You can have it 3D printed. You don't need a human anymore. It can just be made anywhere, and it can be made super cheap. And suddenly making a guitar from wood involving all the humans in the production process, all of that becomes a bit of a luxury, doesn't it? See, many things that are luxuries today were the norm for how things were made. Today, if you have a handcrafted leather jacket or leather shoe, not leather jacket, leather shoe perhaps is a better example, handcrafted by somebody, some artisan sitting in Italy or in Japan, it's luxury. It's like it's so much cheaper to make it through a factory, but we are doing the luxury of getting a human to make it. That could be the way that wooden guitars made from wood go. It's just easier, much cheaper to 3D print it, super consistent, just like mass produced things are. Super consistent, works, does the job. But hey, if you want it made of wood and you want a human to work on it, maybe that's going to be expensive. So yeah, I mean, I don't know what the timeline on this is. It could be 20 years, it could be 10 years, it could be 50 years. I really don't know. I'm not making a prediction on the timeline. But I'm convinced that with the things evolving as they are, with the rapid advances in AI, with the rapid advances in automation, with the environmental pressures that all countries and all industries are facing, it is but inevitable that guitars made from wood will become a thing of the past. So whatever guitars made from wood you have today, which you can even buy for $100 or $150 or $200, they're still made from wood. Enjoy them, enjoy them, and we'll see when the apocalypse arrives. All right, take care. I just one more thought. What will the purists say? Think about it. Today we have so much of an uproar with small changes in guitar. What will happen to them, right? Imagine the whole guitar is not made of wood. When Gibson made the Richlite fretboards as a substitute for ebony, oh my god. I've made a video on this, one of the most popular videos on my channel, actually, on Richlite. I love it, by the way. So what will the purists say? Will they accept it? Will the guitarists in general accept it? Will there be market acceptance of guitars without wood? I think there will be. I think ultimately people may scream and shout or whatever, but if you have an equally good guitar, not made from wood, and it's equally good, equally functional guitar, not made from wood at say price X, and you have a guitar made from wood at price 2X or 3X. Some people will be purists, 90% of people will just go to that. Not to say that there won't be luxury items. There may not be luxury guitars still made from wood, still made relatively by hand. But majority of guitarists will just shirk their shoulders and just go ahead and be like, okay, this is the way things are now. I mean, we've done it already in other segments. If you think about cars, I keep bringing up cars because I love cars as well. I mean, big, naturally aspirated engines, V12s, V10s, were not common, but they were present not very long ago, till 2010, probably, or even 2010, even more recently, but even 2010, 2012, you could get them in not just supercars, but even in cars such as Audis and BMWs. And now they're extinct. They just are. Now even the performance BMWs are electric or hybrids. So people just move on. There will be some petrol heads like me who will scream and shout and not accept it, but most of us will just move on to the next thing. That's just human nature. All right, this is really it this time. Take care. All the best.